So I never know when this thing is going to start recording. So what I usually do in the beginning is I introduce myself. I say that my name is Dennis Procopio. I'm the owner of Man Up Life Coaching in San Diego, California. And today I'm going to be sharing a conversational space with a guest, my man Torey. And Torey, look, dude, we're not gonna play to the camera like we're doing something really important. We're basically just gonna have the same level of conversation we always have, just with the camera rolling. Cool.
Yeah.
All right. So just before I hit record, actually, let me just flip this. This is I know this goes about 30 minutes. It just, that lets me know that we don't run over. Cat's out of the bag. You know me in a professional capacity. I'm this guy, Dennis of Man Up Life Coaching, and you know me by working through me. So first things first, I don't want to turn this into a Man Up Life Coaching infomercial, but you want to maybe just talk about how we know each other and all that. I'll let you do it rather than me doing it.
Yeah, no, definitely. I mean, I've been working with you now for, God, it's going to be 2 years here in February. So yeah, I've been working with you for a bit. So we're not strangers. This isn't something new. And I think this is far more effective than counseling, just from a personal perspective. I think this gives a level of realism that's outside of the box, which is, something that I certainly appreciate. It's not something that's just, clearly defined as clinical. So to me, it's, there's a level of vulnerability that you can have, and you can kind of scratch beneath the surface and go even deeper on a lot of these things, and especially just on topics for all things guys and different perspectives, whether you're married, single, divorced, or whatever. I think this is also just a great place and a great space and a great relationship to communicate on things that I think a lot of men today are hesitant to talk about, and it's not so much that they're hesitant to talk about because they don't know what they're talking about, but to really trust what they, want to talk about to somebody that really can understand. And that's where I think a lot of guys who you work with work with your clients can identify with you personally, not just at a clinical level, like with counseling. This is something like, hey, you talk about conversation. We're having a conversation as if we're two guys.
Which we are.
But we're two guys that, hey, where some guys, can go and have a couple drinks and talk or whatever, or
straight
shoot the shit.
That's what the bro coach thing is all about. I've been kind of pushing this idea that dudes don't necessarily like to go to a therapist in a clinical environment and feel like they're sort of groveling at the feet of this psychiatric establishment with all of its rules. They like the lateral sort of dynamic between two brothers for all intents and purposes. And there's a component, which, I'm the guy from Philly, brotherly love, right? I feel that in this space, I'm not beholden to this sort of scientific, objectivity. I can be in the conversation as a bro, and I have liberty to kind of move around in a space that I wouldn't have liberty to do if I were beholden to those specific industry standards, right?
No, definitely, no, without a doubt. And I think that also gives a level of vulnerability that you can have on both sides of the conversation, both with you yourself, and then also with your client as well. I think it also gives it a space too for most males, and I say most males, I can't speak, on behalf of all of them, but I would say for you and me being your client, and then your other clients as well too, that the clinical approach there's definition, there's structure, which has its place in things, but usually most guys, we live in our box every day. We work we drive in a box, we live in a box, we usually stare at a box.
We're in these
Yeah,
lanes, dude. Yeah.
exactly. So, and whether it's physical, emotional, whatever, everything is defined, and that has its time and place for everything. But when it comes to things like this too, there's the side of creativity. This is a level of creativity. This is a level of vulnerability that most males, the reason why they're probably not comfortable with anything that's psychiatric or clinical is just because of the fact that it's, again, we go to work in a box, we work in a box, we live in a box, we drive in a box. It's just, hey, there's a level of discomfort when we go into work and we're a family man, we live, and so for us to be creative, whether we communicate verbally, non-verbally, whether we participate in sports or extracurricular activities, that's outside the box. And this is exactly that. So that's my 2 cents, whether it makes sense or not.
No,
That's how I
mean,
associate with it. So,
dude, the reason I
yeah.
was interested in doing a sort of a mock interview with you, I mean, it's just you and I like every session I'm thinking, we should be recording this because we have, I mean, you're a dude of a certain age. How old are you?
I'll be 39 next month. So,
jeez, bro.
yeah.
And you have military background, right?
I do. Yeah.
Yeah. So Army.
Mm-hmm.
And speaking of being in boxes, right? I mean,
yeah,
it's very, I mean, it's by definition, it's everything's regimented.
Yeah, and again, everything has its time and place for everything. It's just when it comes to me, when it comes to certain things like this is an opportunity for at least me to say, hey, I could be in a creative space, talk about what I need to talk about, work on a solution on something that I need to be out of the box. I need a resolution that's out of the box. This is not a time and a place for where I need rigidity. Yes, a plan could be associated with that, but the creative process to get to that needs to come from outside the box. And so, and because it doesn't start with a plan, it ends with a plan, but it doesn't necessarily start with a plan. And so to get to that point, you need to be in a creative space. Being in a creative space involves all levels of communication. It needs to come from different sides. It needs to come from your, different sectors of your brain.
Yeah, more of a lateral thinking,
Exactly.
more of a lateral drift than this linear
Yeah.
charge. And so that's a good jump off point for our topic, which is aggression. I mean,
yeah.
The reason that I thought aggression would be a really good topic for us to talk about. I have a client, Zach. He's down in Texas. He's a Marine. I got you. Your Army. What you, Zach, and I all have in common is that we didn't have the best. And this, I mean, I have a lot of dudes who fit this MO. Who were, are of a certain age from their 30s, like I'm 50, but, from somewhere between 30 something and 50 something, are these guys who were raised according to a certain code, and the behavioral modality for men, the script that we've famously read off is a fight or flight script. And I guess you could say fight, flight, or freeze. So fight is something that, you didn't have the greatest childhood. I didn't have the greatest childhood. My man Zach didn't have the greatest childhood. And I could name a bunch of other guys over the past 10 years that I've worked with that didn't have the greatest childhoods. But I could also name other people who did, for all intents and purposes, have a decent childhood, but are still in survival mode in their lives. But so it just so happens, though, that you and I and this other guy that I'm talking about share that component, which is the crappy childhood. There's the second thing, which is being very self-deprecating and self-judging, and that self-deprecation and that self-judgment leading to a need for and a desire for external validation. And so either we go to things that become addictions for external validation, whether it's, I could list them out, or we refrain from that, but we're finding ourselves either aggressive and being nasty, and very fight aggression oriented, or we're retreating and stuffing it down, saying this is fine, and going kind of into our turtle shell. Or we get trapped by some relative or wife or girlfriend or whoever that puts us on the spot, and we're not allowed to retreat. We're going to get in trouble if we bark. And so we're in this sort of freeze state. And what I wanted to chat with you about today that I thought would be interesting is a concept. I actually wrote something and I was going to share it here, but it's the idea of fight, flight, or Zen, as with Zen being sort of the invisible third horn of dilemma.
Yeah, no, I like that. I honestly can get on board with that. I know, and I think I know where you're going with it too, because I
think
really
you do. Yeah. Okay.
Yeah.
So you see, you're somebody who, like, I've said since I've known you, like when I first met you, I was like, oh, dude, you know who you remind me of? You remind me specifically of this actor who played this character in The Big Lebowski. What's your boy's name, John?
John Goodman, Walter Sobchak.
Yeah, with the pilot glasses, and you were an air traffic controller. I mean, it's per year the military with you. Yeah, it's perfect, and it's this, big nice guy who's a freaking sweetheart on the inside, but it's like guard. There is no fight or flight. It's fight or fight. The best defense is a good offense.
Yep.
So. Yep. I think that you came into our coaching dynamic vacillating wildly between extreme external aggression, or at least
the appearance of it, right? Yeah.
Or fighting that and retreating and being like, fine, I freaking give up.
Yeah, I mean, well, and I think it's today's dilemma for a lot of guys. I mean, I really do. I mean, it's because guys, just in general, and look, from a perspective that guys, it's expected for guys to wear many hats. It doesn't matter if you're single, it doesn't matter if you're married, it doesn't matter if you're divorced, it doesn't matter what fucking position you are. Guys, I think it's just in our inherent nature to wear many different hats because we're utilitarian. We just are in nature. I really do. I think, and if you go back to the hunter-gatherer aspect of it, you're required to wear many different hats, and it's just the way it is. And so the different part is how, I think what it comes down to is the fight, flight, or Zen aspect. The fighting aspect has its time and place. The fleeing or flight has its time and place. But the concrete value is the Zen. And I think that's where where your thesis is at, is the Zen is where you are, the time and place that each part of those components is appropriate. Hey, it's not always appropriate to just fight, but it is appropriate in some circumstances. It's not appropriate just to flee when it's not necessary. But then again, there's times where, hey, it's probably in your best interest to do that. But the only way that you're going to be able to do that is if you have a healthy mindset or a healthy psychology behind that, which is a struggle for a lot of guys.
So talk to me. Let me ask you a question. So in terms of generality, that's true, but specifically with your experience, which is the relatable part. What's a story from your experience that demonstrates, from your recent experience, get too personal, it's the internet, and this is YouTube, but and this is going to be out there, but something safe that says, here's a perfect example of me being, it could be work related, it could be relationship related, where my inner asshole wants to come out and fuck somebody up with a crowbar, and I'm not allowed to do that. So I have to stuff it. And by stuffing it, it becomes toxic. And I'm learning through coaching that there's this third option. That's kind of
okay, I got you. No, I think like day-to-day stuff. I mean, I'm talking like with work. Hey, I work in an environment, a high stress environment. I work in brokerage finance. Okay, and so finance falls in the top 3 most emotionally response. Where you get the most emotional response in life in general. Okay, family. If something happens to your family, something happens to your health, something happens to your finances, you're going to have a strong emotional response, and I work in that. Unfortunately, we live in a time where pretty much all three are it's the trifecta. I mean, we have COVID impacts your health, family strain because of COVID, and then the impact strain on all things that are related from COVID and just the world in general. But when it comes to dealing with clients at work, it's tough because you are essentially the punching bag in receiving a lot of that emotion, whether you like it or not.
So in other words, is it because you have to be the bearer of bad news? Like, why are you?
You could be the bearer of bad news. You could just be because it's something that has nothing to relate to you. It could be the market's just dumping, and hey, somebody's in a particular position, it's dumping along with the market, and they're pissed off about it. And so because they have their accounts at the place that I work, I have to take the brunt of that, and that's not necessarily fun. But the old me and my aggressiveness, which would not have been healthy, nor would it be professional, would have put it back on that person who's talking to me that way. But then again, nor would I have a job, and nor would that be professional, nor is that healthy either. But I'm also acknowledging the fact that, hey, I'm human, I'm not perfect, and it does grind on you. Through counseling, I've come to realize that, hey, there's the Zen aspect that, hey, if you realize and you self-validate that you're coming from a position where, hey, you can still receive that with boundaries from a healthy mindset and understand that, hey, it's not about you. It's about what that person's going through, and it has nothing related to you. You're just in the transactional medium. Unfortunately, you're just receiving that. So being overly aggressive in an unhealthy manner is definitely not going to work to my advantage.
Like punching your computer monitor?
Or punching your computer monitor, taking it out on the client who's taking it out on you.
Yeah.
I'm not saying you can't have boundaries, but you can't be unhealthy about it either, nor can you be unprofessional about it either. And so there was a point in time, I mean, before I even got this job, that, yeah, my old self would have been, unfortunately, had that mindset continued into my profession today, yeah, I would have probably been fired, or I definitely would have had disciplinary action taken towards me. That's not when it's appropriate. But hey, if you're where it would have been appropriate is say, hey, if I'm walking down the street minding my own business and somebody who decides to be overly aggressive with me and decides to overstep that boundary, okay, me being in a fighting stance to defend myself is completely appropriate. So
okay, wait. Let me freeze on that. That good topic. So, and let me. I'm gonna take a couple of steps to hit a target here. So don't grab the frisbee and run with it. So first thing you did is you talked about being in a brokerage environment where you are the middleman between a person who has significant fiscal assets and the market and what it's doing. And if they're making money, then great, you're everybody's best friend. But if they're starting to tank, then it's like being the doctor has to tell somebody, you have cancer or something. Like it's, oh, great, glad to hear it. No, that doesn't happen. Oh, okay, thanks. I'm super cool with that. So again, air traffic control, you're not unfamiliar with high stress environments, but this in particular is this thing where as you age and, you're like, look, I've had to, freaking kiss ass, as a younger guy in the military and everything. I really don't want to come to work and have somebody down talking me. That's not cool. But because it's professional, I'm going to say, okay, I'm going to hold myself to a certain standard of behavior. So it's not that you're being done. Like I said, I said don't grab the frisbee because I know I'm floating some softballs out there that I know you want to take a shot at. But so it's not. when you're a professional and you say, yes, okay, well, blah, 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 and you act like a nice little neutral automaton, the reality is, and this is what I try to talk to a lot of guys about, just because you haven't externalized your reaction doesn't mean you're not having a reaction. You're just swallowing a bomb. Mm-hmm. And so every time you pack that down, pack it down, pack it down, pack it down, pack it down, you're increasing the amount of back pressure that's there, and then, something, whatever it is, it's the classic dad who comes home from work and the kid or the wife or the dog does something that just makes you snap and lose it. You learn through trial and error that you can't snap and lose it there. So the next thing you're walking around with this, like, I have no outlet for this. I don't necessarily want to go just, sit in a therapist's office and
just regurgitate the shit.
Regurgitate the shit, because I don't necessarily get value from just talking. I'm not my wife.
Right.
So I mean, not to stereotype.
No, I gotcha. I gotcha.
I'm a guy and I want solutions. So one of the solutions that we've implemented here is the idea that fight is bowing up and being ready for something. Flight is, I'm just going to run away from this, avoid this, put this out of my mind. But you're not putting it out of your mind. You're just putting it out of your consciousness, but it's still in there. That's where baggage comes from.
Right.
But this third idea, and this is where I'm going to hand it back. This third idea, which if you're a Christian, not everybody in my listening audience is a Christian. I have Christians, Jews, Muslims, Hindus, Brahmins, Buddhists, Zoroasters, the agnostics, atheists, the list goes on. But for the people who do wonder, hey, what would Jesus or someone like Jesus do? It's what they wouldn't do. What they wouldn't do is react externally or internally. What they would do is say, this is something that's happening. I'm aware of it. I'm observing it, but I'm going to do the best I can to breathe, be calm, and not take responsibility for any of this turbulence that I'm feeling and experiencing. And most importantly, dude, instead of hating on this person or situation externally or internally, I'm going to do the best I can to be understanding and even forgiving.
Yeah. Yes, I agree with you 100% on that. I absolutely do. Now, to carry it all the way through to forgive the person based on that circumstance, I mean, it comes in different forms. I mean, some things are easier to forgive than others, but yeah, I mean, the epitome in the Holy Grail, even biblically, is forgiveness. But I will tell you, there's probably circumstances that I'm not at that point. But then again, it comes down to the interpretation, where if I'm taking it that personal to where I feel like I actually have to pursue forgiveness on that part, then I'm already starting off on the wrong foot. If I'm taking something like, say, if I'm interacting with a client and I'm taking it personal, okay, I'm already starting off on the wrong foot, because at the end of the day, I should be looking at this. This is really not personal. This is somebody reacting towards me, and I'm just caught in the crossfire.
This is their issue, not my issue. Right?
Yeah, but then again, that comes with a level of maturity that I would say that I didn't necessarily have to begin, to start with. And over time, working with you and being introduced and being a part of certain circumstances with a different mindset has allowed me to gradually get into that level of maturity, has definitely helped. Yes, there is the aspect of where there are times where I do have to compartmentalize it, and that compartmentalizes, again, it's a finite space emotionally and energetically in somewhere that has to go somewhere. Now, me before, that comes out in unhealthy ways, whether it's through, being overly aggressive and an unhealthy aggression, or doing, other things that, and it doesn't matter. It's just doing things in an unhealthy way to express that and get that out. It's not good. And it's not healthy, and it's not a true representation of what we as men should be. it happens. We have flaws, but at the end of the day, that's what we're working. That's what we're working with and working towards something better. But the one of the stories that I guess I just remembered, but I think I had a conversation with you, and this was almost a year ago. It was shortly after I moved back to Phoenix, and I was coming home from work, and I remember like there was just a part of me, well, hey, like road rage happens for me when I was younger, but but then like I remember I was driving home from work, and I didn't necessarily have the best day at work, but it was like all right, fine, whatever. And I remember sitting there, and I remember like on my way to work, because it was like the perfect like 40 to 45 minutes on the way to work, I can listen to my validation come through the app over my stereo system in my truck. But I remember I would drive home and I don't listen to anything. It just allows me to decompress. And I remember there was a guy he has this 5 liter Mustang, one of the newer Mustangs, and he was hauling ass down I-10, weaving in and out of traffic as if he had somewhere else better to go than the rest of us on fucking I-10 at 4 o'clock in the goddamn afternoon. Now, me, I had some parts where it's like, you know what? Fuck this guy. You know, I'll teach him. Well, what am I going to teach him? Me just getting in trouble? Old me, probably. But then I was realizing, you know what, man, at least I'm not in that guy's position where I have to drive like that to get home. You know, I got a wife, I've got a family. I've got other things that are a hell of a lot more important than my own ego. And at the end of the day, I'm just fine listening to nothing, decompressing, enjoying the semi traffic on the way home. And I remember sitting back, and I sat there and I was like, fuck, that was pretty easy. I wish all things like that were that easy, but it was a good start for me.
You know, I have to interject right quick and say, you've heard me say this a million times. You're military. You've done your share of, carried your share of weight on your back. I am a civilian who's gotten into rucking for, you know, to satisfy certain hit certain fitness targets, and the physical ruck can be addictive for us because you know, after life puts heaviness on your back, so to speak, for so long, there's a certain point of pride, like, come on, bring it, you know. And so like I got this, you know, like, come at me, you know. And but so I've said, in terms of emotional baggage, you know, the true test, this is one of my little isms, the true test of a man's strength isn't the weight he can carry, but the weight he can put down.
Yeah.
And in that situation, you demonstrated that you were able to put down this heavy weight of obligation that you felt to, like, I'm not your bottom bitch. Like, I'll freaking go catch up with you and show you. You don't, like, this desire to punish, bro.
Yeah.
Right.
For what? Yeah.
And the ability to, instead of reacting, the ability to take that Zen moment. Respond, loosen the hands around the steering wheel and go, you know what? Instead of fuck you, deuces, bro. Like, just deuces with your freaking Mustang. Go like, later. And when you're able to let go of that, you feel like you've unlocked an achievement level. Like, wow.
It was, yeah. I mean, it literally was, because I mean, I sat there and I was like, you know, in the grand scheme of things, I mean, it's not like the biggest thing in the world. It really isn't. But to me, it was, because I sat back. It was like the first time I started with what normally would piss me off big time. I mean, legitimately piss me off.
You and me both, buddy.
Yeah. And I think most people, but I just sat back and I was just like, I just remember sitting there and it's like, well, I was enjoying my drive before. There's really no reason for me not to enjoy my drive now.
Somewhere along the way, some dipshit just came raging through And now he's gone. It's funny because I'm looking at time. I should
Yeah.
probably wrap up.
Yeah.
But it's funny because tomorrow I actually have tomorrow Sunday, I have an appointment to go at this Peer Space in Burbank. It's this rentable studio with green screen and white screen. And one of our admin is going to, he's a West Hollywood advertiser, graphic artist guy. And he's going to be spending the better part of like 6 hours with all of his expensive cameras and toys, helping me to create some content for Man Up Life Coaching. And I'm already in my head thinking about the ride from down here, San Diego, up to LA. You're from Southern California.
Yeah,
you know what that is, man.
Yep, sure do.
Woo!
Yep.
It's not exactly a bunch of people just being polite to each other for 3 hours. It's, there's some crap. So my game is to use that 2.5 to 3 hour ride as a meditation and as a way to practice peace in a dynamic situation with some challenges. They say it's easy to be holy on the mountaintop. It's in the valley when you find out, how much you've learned, right?
Yeah.
Well, listen, Torey, brother, I know me and you, we'll keep going. So let me just, let me close this out, say goodbye to these people, Man Up Life Coaching, like, follow, blah, 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 and then stick around and you and I will close out our chat. Cool?
Right on, brother.
Okay. What I said, like, subscribe, follow, all that. Thanks, guys. And stop stream here. Let me put the old man glasses on. I swear to God, I can't even read what this